And we are live with another episode of Rebel Health Spotlight. I'm your host, Michael. Thanks for tuning in. I am here today with Christopher Blakeslee. Christopher, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always so great to talk with you.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And you were one of the first people I thought of when we were going to record this because I thought,
Oh, thanks.
who would be able to shift somebody's trajectory in 20 minutes? And Um, for those who don't know, we'll put the link to the long form. The podcasts that we've done with Christopher will be down below this video. So you can go over there. There's a two-part podcast because it was just too much to share. Um, we'll get into why in a second. But before we start talking about any of that stuff, Christopher's been on his own incredible healing journey, and we're going to talk about that. And I'll let him tell you now. So who are you? What do you do? What's your current role in the health space? And then we'll get into a little bit more.
Sure. So, gosh, I'm a doubly certified functional health coach. I've been running recovery health coaching for the last 2.5 years, and I've worked successfully with a little over 100 clients so far. And like so many people outside the mainstream health world, it's been a pretty unexpected journey to this profession. The younger me, who just wanted to write novels, would be quite shocked to hear that I run a successful healthcare business whenever I just wanted to write fiction. So yeah, like you said, the longer version will definitely be below this podcast, but I basically got into this world out of necessity because I was sick ever since I was young. It just, as all my memories when I'm a kid, is just something coming up, being on antibiotics. Oh my gosh, it's strep throat. And then the bladder stuff started. And it's like I had IC, interstitial cystitis, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, all by the time I was a teenager. I was just always limited as a kid, and health was ever present, which is why I didn't really want to focus on it, because it's just this limited kid going through life, struggling and shutting everything away and just trying to function as best I could and knowing I couldn't keep up with anybody. And that led to me barely making it through college, where I had a smile on my face thinking that I was getting by pretty okay. And then it all just exploded beyond my worst nightmare pretty much within that year after I got through school.
So you were sick from when you were a kid with all those things that you just listed, which limited your whole childhood and growing up and high school and college. I can't believe you made it through college like that. That's an incredible achievement in itself because
Thanks.
people don't realize that even if your health conditions don't have like neurological symptoms as the main thing, which you did have some, but even if you don't have like neurological symptoms as the main thing, being in pain or having a whole bunch of other issues going on in your body, I witnessed this with my wife. Like it affects your ability to think and concentrate and
Oh
focus and like
yeah.
care about doing things and to be productive or efficient or any of that. And so it's really pretty incredible. And then you said like early 20s is where it really kind of went off a
Yeah.
cliff. And you'll learn in the podcast. I highly encourage you guys to go listen to the longer podcast because the story is incredible. You at one point were bedridden.
Yeah.
For how
Essentially for
long?
15 years. It was from '04 to 2019, where it's just I was disabled that whole period of time, where my body just kept breaking down more and more to the point where I just gave up on any sort of exercise and just laid there, sat there. And that deal where I lost 3 inches off my height because I was always just in the same hunched over position because I couldn't even lie down because the nerve damage was so extensive, even in the back of my head, that lying down didn't work. And I've had some tests done that indicated that I have nerve damage in 85% of my body, which is just crazy considering how great I feel now. But oh my gosh, those 15 years were just pure agony, just nonstop. People say time goes by so fast. And I'm like, really? I feel like that was like 300 years.
I can't imagine how long, because we've had stretches in our life like this one that we're currently in that are very difficult for various reasons. It can be a health problem, it can be a life circumstance, it can be something else. But when you're in it, when there's like a major problems going on, time stands still. Like it is
Yeah,
like the clock is like tick, tick.
right.
Um, so yeah, I feel like these last 7 weeks in our life here have been like 3 years. I can't imagine 15 years of that. And just how did you, and we'll keep this short, but what flipped the script? What flipped the switch? What was your moment of like, I'm gonna change this, or you believed you could, or something happened, or you met somebody, or like what was your switch flip?
That's a really good question. And it's kind of like a two-part answer because
Okay.
I'm realizing that I had that attitude the whole way, that it was going to work out one way or another. That if I just lived long enough, that somebody'd figure it out or I would. And that's why and now I'm over 17 years into studying functional medicine, that nothing was working. So I was just studying lifestyle changes, mindset work, functional medicine, and kept trying and striking out during those 15 years. And then whenever because I tried to wed the approaches of conventional medicine along with all the alternative stuff. And when I went on that immunosuppressant and started losing my vision and started shaking that night, it's like, oh my gosh, I think I might actually die here in 2017. It's like full commitment at that point. And then luckily, 9 months later, I found what I refer to now as the fourth pillar after those other three, which is neuroscience from Dr. Jim Lemons, who was in Kansas City and was doing some things, just had an in-house program. And as soon as I came across that, it's like it unlocked everything for me. I was already doing those other things correctly around how to eat right for autoimmunity and so many other things around that, that I was getting off the 15 medications. I was quitting the morphine, I was quitting the long acting narcotics and the muscle relaxers. And that just put it all together for me. And it's been 6.5 years now since that moment.
Wow. It's incredible you were able to keep that hope. I don't think I would have. Like, I think I would have been long gave up at that point. Like, I don't know. It's hard to tell like how somebody reacts in a situation like that unless you're in
Sure.
it. But it's really remarkable. And so it was the neurological work that really started moving the needle with you, the nervous system based
Right.
practices
I just
and
couldn't get
focus.
moving to the right degree because I had so much atrophy from not moving at that point, and I was over 100 pounds overweight, and just standing was such a big deal at all. And I would just flare up and just have a horrible week, just as sensitive as I could get on everything. So figuring out how I could calm it from every direction, that was so incredibly important. And it's something I make sure that I do with every single one of my clients because it's just foundational to everything.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because we've done a masterclass brain and nervous system. We talked about this extensively on your podcast too. The nervous system work is something that's often overlooked in functional medicine, in the functional
Yeah,
medicine approach. Um, Nobody knows this yet. I haven't announced it publicly at all, but I'm co-hosting a summit for Health Means that will air in March, and they produce all the huge online
right.
summits, and it's titled Beyond Functional Medicine. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is nervous system work. So
Oh, that's great.
um, it's essential, and it often gets overlooked, even in a progressive functional medicine approach. And so um, the transition from going through all of that to becoming a coach, did you just decide like, hey, I've learned all this stuff, I might as well use it to be a
Right.
professional, or was it like a really strong drive to help people that were in similar situation, or what was it that kind of was like, hey, I should do this?
It was kind of both of those things because I knew that at this point I had a really weird and unique skill set to help people out. Because, like, who the heck comes out of that sort of thing and knows how do you adjust your activity levels? How do you stay sane during these kinds of things? I thought, man, this would be such a waste if I didn't pass this on in some way, which is why I'm writing a book with Dr. Lemons and I'm still hoping that'll be done next year. I'm kind of on a version 2.0 on that right now. After working with clients, it helped me just name the first principles so much better and just essentialize it to be so much more helpful for people. But and then I just thought, I don't want this to happen to anybody else, because now it's like, I'm great. I work out 6 days a week. I can deadlift 310 pounds. I can squat 270. It's like I never had to go down that road. And it's like I didn't have a pain-free day for 27 years. Now I've had 26 here in the last couple of months. And just thinking, it's amazing what the body can do. And if I can stop it from happening to one other person, it's totally worth it. And then getting into it and seeing all the recoveries, it's just, I couldn't do anything else now. It's the best job.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's like you graduate, I'll say it graduated once you were well enough to function as a coach even, or go to a training or get a certification or anything. It's like you walked in the door with like a master's level education in the
Yeah,
stuff. The certifications were like I don't know what to call that, like a symbolic thing at that point. Like it
I
wasn't
got
something like,
perfect on the final without studying.
I'm sure, yeah. And so you probably saw practitioners where you knew more than they did when you walked in the door. So learning out of necessity is a way that a lot of people in this industry that I've interviewed have come to do what they do. A lot of
Yeah.
functional medicine doctors and coaches and practitioners, they have the specialty they have because it's the thing that was the thing they had to figure out. Like I know a lot more about autoimmunity now that my wife developed autoimmune conditions, and right now I'm learning a lot more about pediatric health than I ever knew before. And so, um, we learn the things we need to know, and unfortunately, you needed to learn a lot of things. And so it's really, really, I can't stress this enough for people to listen to the podcast. I've heard a lot of healing journeys and stories in my life, and I can't even think of another one that's comparable to yours. So and I know that that brings a level of empathy into your work
For
that a lot
sure.
of coaches and practitioners won't have. So if you're out there and you're thinking somebody won't understand me or won't understand where I am or won't be able to relate to where I am, or I'm too far gone, or I'm this, like where Christopher's been and come from, I guarantee you there's nothing you're going to tell him that he hasn't either experienced or heard of or seen. So how can they find your work if they want to work with you or check out what you do a little bit more?
So recoverfromchronicillness.com. I'll go to my website and they can schedule a free 30-minute call with me and sign up for my email list too, because we got a course coming out here that's over 30 modules on thinking, moving, breathing, and other neuroscience education things I've seen really useful for people. And I try and work as intensively as possible with my clients, because I know you get the best recovery situation whenever you totally focus down on people. So I came up with this intensive program that I work with people in, and I do this really thorough intake. I've expanded it as much as I can to make it as close to a one-stop now, where I do the functional testing and do some protocol work when needed, the neuroscience education, and just I'm seeing people sometimes now 2 or 3 times a week at the beginning and messaging them every single day, because I found that so many of the appointments we're recapping so much of what happens. Like I have all these skills around neuroscience and just balancing your day and knowing how to keep your mindset in the right place and what diet tweaks to make, that I thought, we're spending too much time on that. So why not pull them out of hell as fast as possible and just do this for like a month or two? And I'm seeing such great results now. I used to
So with
say
high
three.
touch, like high touch, high contact, like constant
Right,
support, really, instead of like going over this load of stuff and then seeing them again in 2 weeks and then spending the whole
right.
hour with them catching you up on what happened and then
Yeah. It's
giving
like,
them a
and
new
here's
thing to
next
do.
protocol
And
step. Ugh, yeah,
yeah,
there's
no,
just so
that's
much that can tweak.
so it's
And
kind of like having a teammate.
yeah, it's the people that get into it, it's like the frequency is the magic along with those skills. And people are saying, like, I didn't know that something like this could exist. And it's exactly what I've wanted all along. Like, we're going to record some testimonials pretty soon, because I had this one guy that he had mold toxicity, E. coli, oxalate overload, and a surgery that just left some pretty nasty stuff. And he was really sedentary, just POTS off the charts, pain anytime he moved. And then 6 weeks later, he's walking 4 miles a day. Now it's been 6 months, and he's swimming and lifting kettlebells, and he lives on his own. He works on site again. It's just, oh my gosh,
Amazing,
seeing
amazing. So
stuff like that.
that's
I just
incredible.
love it.
Um, so we'll put the link down below to contact Christopher. I love that approach of like, because people that are really in it, they need that high touch. They need
Right.
not only to like tweak things on the fly, but also to know that someone's there. Like just that, like, you know, when when you met the doctor you ended up working with that was really helpful for you, it was that relationship too that really shifted the needle a little bit too.
For
So
sure.
I love that approach. I think it's really unique. I haven't heard of that, I don't think, with anyone that I know either. And it's very labor intensive on your side, and
Yeah.
but it'll move the needle fast, I think,
Right.
versus the weekly or bi-weekly check-ins and
For
then they're on their
sure.
own for a week and they're making the best call based on, oh, I think maybe I should do this or whatever. And
Yeah.
um that's amazing. So contact Christopher if you're interested in working with him. And I'd like to give them a little taste of, obviously everyone's different. So there's no universal, everyone needs to do XYZ thing. But if you could share with us a few needle movers, a few recommendations that you often see people either aren't doing or don't know about or are doing in a way that might not be optimal, what would those be that you could share with the audience that they could either switch or change or start like tomorrow?
Okay, yeah. Like the first one is build your foundation first. And what I mean by that is you got to address the basics of recovery before you go after something advanced. So you need to ask yourself things like, what's your diet like? What's your movement like? What's the state of your nervous system? How stressful are your interactions with others? Because if you try something advanced before you've done that stuff, you're just in such an inflamed state and you're introducing like an inflammatory detox that it just doesn't go well. And those heroic measures, when people just dive to those, that's when they either don't stick or they just don't work at all, even if it's something they really needed. So I see a lot of people spend a lot of misery, well, get a lot of misery and spend a lot of money trying to do those sorts of things. And sometimes they don't even need that advanced stuff. If they just get the basics going, it's amazing. We'll start detoxing just because they're
Yeah.
not busy with other stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot when I was working with clients too. They would come in and want to do these like run $4,000 in lab tests and do
Mm,
these elaborate protocols and try this other thing. And there's places for that. But then I would say, what time are you going to bed?
yeah,
And they'd be like, oh, 1:30 in the morning after the rerun of whatever. I'm like, okay, let's start there. So it's not sexy, but it gets the job
right.
done. Starting with the foundation. So what other tips you got?
Yeah, the second one's really linked to that, and it's totally sounds boring and obvious, but it's to focus on behavior management because it's so powerful and underrated. And what I mean by that is evaluate everything you do to find what your symptom triggers are and then develop strategies to either reduce or eliminate them. Because a lot of times it's this little stuff that people are doing throughout the day, like not holding their body right or just doing something that's not right for their context that's really flaring them up. So just some little stuff like that I had to do is make sure I didn't wear socks due to my neuropathic damage. Just like just stop doing that and avoid belts and make sure I didn't sit too long to not stir pelvic floor up, or don't drink too much or too little liquid within a couple of hours with my IC. And the trickiest thing about all this is that it shifts depending on how you're feeling. So you just dynamically are having to make really smart decisions about this. You can't just say, oh, that worked yesterday, I need to do that today. You have to check your status and go from there.
Okay. And makes sense. And what would be either a final or another one?
Sure. So this one too is it's I see so many people go down the dark hole of where they're at with their chronic health problems. So I tell people, get your mind off your health problems and enjoy your life as much as you can. And I know that's the last thing ill people think that they can do. And when they feel that way, it usually means that they haven't fully grieved what they've lost yet. So they need to have a grieving period for there first, but just as soon as they can, they need to do whatever they can to try and be happy, because focusing too much on their health just supercharges the inflammation, and the neuroplasticity wires the system to just recognize more and more threats. So I tell my clients, let me worry about what you're going through and just go have a day where you dive back into something you used to love, or try and look at something new. And it's one of these things where I know it's something that everybody can do, because all those dark years while I'm lying in bed in a dark room staring at the ceiling, I'm planning novels that I'm going to write for my retirement years. It's like I could still do something in that to just get my mind off of it and give my nervous system a break.
Beautiful. I love that you brought up the grief aspect of it too. I'm actually today, we're recording this on September 4th. This Saturday, I'm beginning a 5-month training with a therapist who is pretty world renowned for he's written books, he speaks, and he teaches about grief and the power of grief, and that grief is often ignored and grief is
Yeah,
avoided in our culture. And we don't have grief rituals, we don't have grief community support. When somebody's grieving, usually other people immediately try to like change the subject or change their mind or cheer them up or do something to like distract them, because
totally.
grief makes other people uncomfortable. And so I love that you mentioned that, because I agree, for them to move on, that's essential to acknowledge like the sadness and the grief around I lost this, or I
Right.
don't have this, or I can't do this,
It
or
becomes a
else
root cause.
you're just in it. And I love that you mentioned that. I have like ideas already kind of going for ways that when I'm complete with that, I might be able to help some of your people to really process and move
Sounds
through
good.
that kind of situation. So if you come to somebody that's really stuck with that, you can send them my way, and I'll help them. I'll help them
I'd
with the
be happy
grief.
to.
So, all right. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Oh, there's always more.
Well,
But
there's always more, but I think
yeah.
we're running up on our
Yeah, I
time.
think
I'm going to
we're
be
good
strict with
here.
us because I know that we can talk for 2 hours because we did it
Right.
before. So click the links down below for the podcast. We'll have any relevant links that he mentioned, and also to click to investigate working with Christopher. He's accepting clients. He has this really hands-on, incredible approach that I think is great. His story's remarkable. I watch your updates and see all your pain-free days, and there's a lot of people cheering you on.
Oh,
So
thanks.
know
And
that too. It's so incredible.
yeah, but thank you.
So
It's always a pleasure talking with you, Michael. I really appreciate it.
yeah, likewise, man. So thank you very much. Go check out Christopher's work. If you're in that spot and you can relate to what he's saying, reach out. He'd be happy to talk with you. So thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.